Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Nur Afif Tri Mukti and my student number is J1E021032, and in this video I will explain you about phonetics. Phonetics is the study of speech sounds as physical entities. It is about their articulation, acoustic properties, and how they are perceived. Phonetic is essentially the study and classification of speech sounds. Then the next is International Phonetic Alphabet Chart. We have something called the International Phonetic Alphabet Chart, which is an internationally recognized set of phonetic symbols that was developed in the late 19th century. We use them to be very specific about the pronunciation of a word in every language we are working on. And some people find them to be the most accurate and the most reliable way to work on their pronunciation, because you can go to a good dictionary like the Oxford Dictionary or the Cambridge Dictionary, and you can see the phonetic symbols there, and it will tell you how to pronounce that part of a word. So they are really great resource. In studying phonetics, you will get to know three types of phonetics, including articulatory phonetics, auditory phonetics, and acoustic phonetics. The first one is articulatory phonetics, which is the study of how sounds is formed. The second one is auditory phonetics, namely the study of a language received by the listener. And lastly, acoustic phonetics. It is the study of the acoustic characteristic of speech, including an analysis and description of speech in terms of its physical properties, such as frequency, intensity, and duration. Then there is classifying speech sound. Most of speech can be identified by only three criteria. Sounds are distinguished by their articulatory features. The first one is manner of articulation, then place of articulation, and the last one is voicing. In voicing, there are two types, voice and unvoiced sounds. So, voice sounds are when the air is passing through vibrating vocal folds. So, the vocal folds are closed, but when the air passes through them, it causes the sound to produce some vibration. So, this is in contrast with the voiceless sounds, where the air is passing through open vocal folds. So, that is the differences between voice and voiceless sounds. Now the next one is place of articulation. Place of articulation has to do with wherein the vocal tract is the constriction of airflow taking place. So when we are talking about the place of articulation, we have several different places where that can happen, and those are only with the consonant sounds. So first we have bilabial sounds. These are sounds that are produced with the two lips. Next, we have labiodental sounds. These are the sounds that produced with the teeth and the lips, the upper teeth and the lower lip more specifically. Next, we have dental sounds. These are also sometimes called as interdental sounds. These are sounds produced where the tongue is right at behind the upper teeth, or where the tongue actually protrudes through the upper and the lower teeth. Next is alveolar sounds. Alveolar sounds are produced at or near the alveolar ridge. Palatal sounds are basically sounds that are produced with the roof of your mouth. Next, velar. Velar sounds. These are sounds that produce when the tongue and the phlegm. And finally, we have glottal sounds. These are sounds that produce at the glottis. And those of all are the place of articulation that we are using in English. Okay, then we jump to the third point. It is the manner of articulation. This involves how the sounds produced in the vocal tract. So we are not talking about where things are happening, but now we are talking about how is that airflow being constricted when we are producing sounds. There are several type of manner of articulation. The first one is stops, second one is fricatives, affricative, nasals, liquids, and glides. First, we have stop. Stop sounds involve a complete closure. It is a stoppage of the airflow followed by a release of that airflow. Then we have fricative sounds. Maybe you could use this as a mnemonic device because fricative sounds involve some friction. There is a kind of bottlenecking of the airflow around the place of articulation wherever this is happening. So fricative sounds, they have some friction in them. Next, we have affricates. Affricates you could think of as a combination of stops and fricative, or when fricative and stop form an affricate sound. But affricates are not two sounds. They are actually one sound. Then the next is nasal. Nasal sounds happens when the volume is lowered and that allows air to go through the nasal cavity, and that is really important for producing sounds. Next, we have liquid sounds. Liquid and glides are also categories variously and approximate name. Liquid involve really kind of well liquidity tongue motion. Your tongue can do a lot of different shapes when they are producing sounds. Then the last is glides. You could think of in the same way. It is kind of a dynamic sound. Your tongue is doing maybe a couple different things, but glides are much more alike than liquid sounds are. So we use to glide sounds in English. So again, all of these are manner of articulation, how the sound is being produced in the vocal tract. And this is the sources that I use to make this video. And that's all I can explain about phonetics. Thank you for your attention. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.